What's going on, guys? My name is Kalen Vasher, and you are now tuned into another episode of the Kalen Vasher Show. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody listening and or watching. As always, you guys are much, much appreciated. And if you want to connect with me on social media and talk about anything basketball or sports in general, my social medias are linked down below on the screen as well as in the description box for those of you listening on YouTube. So we're finally at the point in the time of the basketball season that all NBA fans look forward to, and that is the NBA Finals. Literally about 10, 15 minutes ago, Game 1 just ended. I was tweeting out and keeping up with everything on Twitter, as well as watching the game live here at home. And the Boston Celtics stole Game 1 on the road, 120-108, taking down the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco. So this is something new that I wanted to get into. I know that I missed a lot of the NBA playoffs. I didn't drop too many videos or anything much about the NBA playoffs, but I know for the finals, I wanted to come through and try and be as consistent as possible and throw out as much content as possible. So besides for, I think, Game 2 may be the only game I miss, and I even still might upload just an audio version of it, but I will be putting up content on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. We're going to try and get this thing rolling, everything pertaining to the NBA Finals. So, like I said, I don't think for Game 2 I'll be able to get a full video version out, as I will be out of town, so I won't have my setup. But I still will have my phone, so I might be able to get an audio version out for you guys. But other than that, every single game, I hope and I pray, and the goal is going to be to put out a video of the recap of the game that we just watched. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our Game 1 recap. Now, I could get on here and I could tell you my prediction, but my predictions haven't gone so well for the playoffs. I put it up on Twitter, so if you want to see what my prediction is, it'll be at Kalen Vasher Show on Twitter. I have my full prediction, my finals MVP, who I think is going to win, how many games, it's all up there. But, just as far as me speaking it, I know that speaking it into existence is a very, very real thing, but my predictions have been off this playoff series or these playoffs. So I want to keep that just under wraps and on Twitter. So go on Twitter if y'all want to see what my predictions are for the finals. I uploaded it about 15 to 20 minutes before Game 1 started. So hopefully everything goes according to plans. Now, getting into Game 1, like I said, the Boston Celtics were able to steal a game out in San Francisco. I was taking notes, writing a little bit of stuff down throughout the game, keeping up. And so I guess this is now a good time of any is to go ahead and talk about what we saw tonight. So just off rip, I want to talk about the first quarter, because I know a lot of people on Twitter were going crazy about how Steph Curry had a crazy first quarter. He had 21 points in the first quarter. He went 6 of 8 from the three-point line. He was just going crazy. This is the NBA Finals Curry that we've been waiting to see. You can obviously tell he wants it. He wants to get that fourth ring. And more than anything, I'm pretty sure that he wants to get that NBA Finals MVP. But moving on to the Boston side of things, Boston really came out flat. They were really jittery and they were really sloppy in about the first 2 minutes. If you go back and look, you'll see Jayson Tatum making a few mistakes. He even airballed a shot in the first 2 minutes. Marcus Smart just seemed to be playing a little fast. Jaylen Brown seemed to be rushing a little bit. So the Celtics, you could very much see those early game jitters and those early game nerves that they had coming out of the gate. But after that, after about the 5 to 6 minute mark, they started to slow down and they started to play their game. Golden State, on the other hand, came out with supreme confidence. I mean, they came out playing fast. They were cutting. They were moving without the ball, setting hard screens. They were doing everything that you want to see out of a championship team. So even though the Celtics ended up winning the game and they won it by a pretty good margin, like I'll get into the fourth quarter and the second half and everything later on in this video, but they really ran away with this game in the fourth quarter. But I want to say for about the first 3 quarters and about midway through the third quarter, it looked like the Golden State Warriors were going to run away with this thing. I did put in my notes, I was like, if Steph has a huge game today, it's all going to be because of the first quarter that he had. I mean, like I said, he had 21 points in the first quarter, 6 of 8 from deep. He ended up with 34 in the game. He kind of tweaked his ankle a little bit in the end of the fourth quarter. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that going forward in the series and how that that's going to play out, because even though it's a small ankle injury and it didn't look like he rolled it too hard, with a guy like Steph that's had plenty full of ankle injuries in the past, even just the small tweak of it can sometimes be enough to throw you off your whole game. So, I mean, and even late in the fourth quarter, even when the game was already decided, I want to say they were down by 10 with a minute and a half or so to go, he missed a layup. So, it's just small things like that you don't think about too much, but even just a small tweak can kind of throw you off mentally, and it can throw your game off. But he still did have a great game, came out, played crazy in the first quarter. But I do think a large turning point for the Warriors was the fact that he didn't score at all in the second quarter. He scored 21 in the first quarter, and he went to halftime with 21 points. I don't think that is acceptable. It's not going to get them a championship. And I think we saw that tonight. I mean, even though he ended up scoring another 13 in the second half, I feel like they really could have ran away with this game, or at least built up a little bit more of a comfortable lead going into halftime had they got a little bit more from Steph. He played all 12 minutes in the first quarter, so I think when you sit him, he didn't come back until about the 7 or the 6.5 minute mark in the second quarter. So I think when you sit him for a little bit longer, it makes it harder, especially when you're hot. As a former basketball player, I know when you're hot and you have things going early, you kind of want to keep that momentum. You don't really feel fatigued at all. Like, you just want to keep it going and keep the momentum that you have. So when it's time for you to sit, you kind of get a little antsy, and then the jitters kind of run off. So kind of like with the Celtics, they had a little bit of bad jitters in the first quarter, in the first few minutes of the game, and, they started to slow down and play their game. As Steph, he had a lot of hype jitters. He had a lot of there's good vibe jitters that you can have. And he came out and he was playing to his full ability, but then once you sit him for a little bit, he kind of cools off. You can't come back and shoot the exact same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't feel exactly how you felt before you went to go sit down. And I think we saw that in the second quarter, and that made all of the difference going through for the rest of the game. Continuing on with the Golden State Warriors, I also want to talk about how Kavon Looney could honestly be the main factor in whether the Golden State Warriors win a championship or if they lose a championship. I have an unreleased episode that I was going to drop, but things just didn't work out. But in that video, I talked about how Jordan Poole, I felt like, was going to be the main X factor for the Warriors and if they won a championship or not. And I feel like with a guy like Looney, who just plays his role and he plays it so perfectly, you kind of forget how good of a season and especially how good of a playoff run he's had. Because he's not putting up the 30-point games and the 25-point games like we've seen from Jordan Poole, and rightfully so, he's gotten a lot of the credit and he's got a lot of the attention that we've been seeing from the past few months out of the Golden State Warriors camp. But I feel like when you have a championship team and a true championship team like these Golden State Warriors have had these past few years, and even these Raptors teams, or the Raptors team that we saw from 2019, 2018, these Cavaliers teams, the Lakers team, you have to have solid role players. And I feel like Jordan Poole hasn't stepped out of his role. He's not stepping on any toes by any means. But when you're young and you're able to put the ball in the hole, and especially coming from a standpoint where Clay wasn't playing as much earlier in the year, so you got more shots, it's kind of hard to now fit into your role. I know Clay came back and they started to get Clay more involved, which means Jordan Poole started to take less shots. But I think that in the playoffs, we've seen a bigger role come from Clay. We've seen Jordan Poole kind of not be pushed completely to the side, but, it's not as big. He's not in as big of a role as he's been needed prior to before Clay was back to almost 100%. So now I think the focus for me transitions onto those role players. How are guys like Iguodala, now that he's back, how is he going to play and how is he going to impact the game? We didn't see Gary Payton II tonight, but I feel like when he comes back, he'll be another player that I want to keep an eye out for as just a role player. See how he sets screens, how he crashes the board, how he plays defense, just things like that. And then so for me, I know a lot of people pay attention to Clay, they pay attention to Steph, Jayson Tatum, and rightfully so. But for me, I paid attention a lot to Kavon Looney and what he was bringing to the table. And there was one point in the game, it was the 7-minute mark around in the third quarter when the Warriors were up by 9, I want to say, or they were up by 4. And Kavon Looney got an offensive rebound, kicked it out to Andrew Wiggins, and he hit a 3, boom, timeout. I personally thought the game was over at that point because we saw a game earlier in the Memphis series where Kavon Looney had 20 rebounds. I don't remember if it was the Memphis series or the Maverick series, but it was one of those two. I want to say Memphis. And he had 20 rebounds. And I feel like he was the main difference maker in that game. So when I was watching tonight, Kavon Looney makes a world of a difference on the defensive end. He's constantly being able to switch until he can be able to recover and get back to the man that he's guarding. When he's on the offensive end, he's setting hard screens. He's constantly on the offensive rebounding glass. So he's getting them second possession chances and second chance opportunities, which is what we saw a lot of in the first quarter. And I actually said it on Twitter. I said the Celtics would be leading. It was about the third quarter, around in the second quarter, when they were always fluctuating around that down by 6, down by 4. I was like, the Celtics would literally be up right now if they could just get an offensive rebound. They struggled so earlier in this game trying to get an offensive rebound just because Kavon Looney was so active. So I think that he plays a big role, and I think that his role is going to grow bigger and bigger as the games go on, because I feel like you're still going to get these kind of games from Steph for the rest of the NBA Finals. He's not going anywhere. Clay played great tonight. I think he had 13 or 16 points. He played great tonight, hit some big threes, especially earlier in the game. If he could have knocked down a few more later in the game, we could be talking about the Warriors winning and not the Celtics. But Kavon Looney, to me, is going to be the guy that steps out, because when it comes down to it, you know what you're getting from your star players, and you know what you're even going to get from a couple of your role players like Draymond, like Jordan Poole. But when you have guys like Kavon Looney that can impact the game in such a massive way without even touching the basketball or being able to put the ball in the rim 20 to 30 times a game, you know what I'm saying? He is going to make a world of a difference. So I think that he is the biggest X factor. I don't think he played bad tonight. I think that the Celtics just hit enough shots and were able to win and played great defense in the fourth quarter. Like I said, we're going to get to the fourth quarter because, of course, that's where the whole entire game changed. But the way that the Celtics started the game, there was no way they were going to win. So Kavon Looney made a big difference. He's going to continue to make a big difference. And if he keeps playing how he is and they can just get a little bit more production out of some of these guys other than Steph, then I think the Warriors are going to be fine. I'm not going to blow it out of proportion, and I'm not going to say the Warriors are going to get blown out in this series, but, you know, I just feel like they need a little bit more production, and Kavon Looney is definitely going to give that to them. Now, also talking about earlier in the game and earlier in the first half, I said that the Celtics would not win this basketball game trying to outscore the Warriors. Both teams came out hot. Both teams came out shooting the ball great. They were, you know, just hot for the first about 3.5 quarters. And I was like, there's no way that the Celtics are going to be able to win this game by outscoring the Golden State Warriors. They're going to need to play defense. These are the number 1 and number 2 teams, respectively, in defensive rating. The Celtics being number 1 and the Golden State Warriors being 2. So I felt like the Celtics needed to get back to who they were all season long, and we saw that in the fourth quarter when they went on a 40-16 quarter to close out the game. You know, we go through the game, and I know I talked about it earlier, how the Celtics just couldn't get over the hump for a long time. They were always down by 4 or 6 or 7. I think the largest that they ended up being down by was 12 at one point in the third quarter. And it was just like they could never get over the hump. Then you turn the corner. You come into the fourth quarter when it's shut-up time or play ball time, and you see the way that guys are just starting to hustle. You see the way that they're getting out in transition. They're making stops. They're forcing bad passes like the one that we saw where Andre Iguodala couldn't get a hand on it and it goes out of bounds. And, you know, you see when they start playing defense, offense was hitting all night long. They just couldn't get stopped. Steph was torching them. So now when you're starting to spring together stops and you're starting to put together stops, possession after possession, then you have it where you can go on 17-0 runs and 14-0 runs to close out games, and they can't touch you. And they can't literally mess with you on the court because of how good your defense is. So both teams are awesome on the offensive end. Both teams can shoot. Both teams have dynamic offensive players. But when it comes down to it, this series is going to come down to defense. They don't say defense wins championships for no reason, because we saw it tonight. We saw how through the first 3 quarters, the Celtics couldn't stop anybody on Golden State, and they were constantly down. But when they get to the fourth quarter, when it's time to actually play grown man ball and say, hey guys, it's time for us to sit down and figure out if we want to win this game or not, or if we're just going to take our L and go into game two. And I feel like they played like a true championship team tonight, especially in the fourth quarter. So if they can play like that for literally even just a fraction of the game, if they can play like that for half of the game, they could go into fourth quarters up by 6 or 7, and that would make a world of difference. Because when you're playing defense constantly like that throughout the game, the other team is getting fatigued over and over again. They can't take getting banged, and they can't take getting stopped on defense. It starts to mess with them mentally. So when you're able to spring together stops and string together stops, it does a world of confidence for you on the offense and defensive end. And I think we saw that tonight in the fourth quarter for them. Now, one of the major things that I want to talk about before I get out of here is the fact that I think Jayson Tatum had his true superstar game tonight. And I know people that just watch the box scores aren't going to agree, but Jayson Tatum had I don't want to say one of his best games because he didn't shoot the ball well whatsoever, but he impacted the game in more than just his scoring, which is something that I feel like I've been waiting to see out of Jayson Tatum for a while now. Jayson Tatum has gotten his true star potential and his true star status because we've seen him score 40 and 50 and 30-point games. But I think that what separates guys like Kobe and LeBron and even Kevin Durant in some aspects is whenever you're able to make the guys around you better and truly, realize that I don't have to score 40 for us to be successful. Granted, Jaylen Brown had one of the best fourth quarters I've seen all playoffs. He had 10 points early in the fourth quarter. He was aggressive. He is the one that kept the gas pedal from what they had going on at the end of the third quarter. They were making a little bit of run at the end of the third quarter, and Jaylen Brown just kept the gas on all fourth quarter long. And so he's one of the main reasons why the comeback even happened. But throughout the game, I was watching, and there was one point where I think they said Jayson Tatum didn't even score a bucket for almost 20 minutes. But they also talked about how he had 7 assists, and he was getting on the rebound, or he was getting on the defensive glass and the offensive glass, and he was playing defense. He was switching. He was doing all the little things. And so when you're a true number one option and you're a true franchise player like he is, I think that what makes the world of a difference for you is when you're able to just make the guys around you better. And we saw that tonight. He had 12 or 13 assists. He was getting Al Horford involved, getting Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Derek White played out of his mind tonight. So when you had everything just kind of clicking and coming together and you're not even having a good game, I think that's when it kind of clicks for him where it's like, you know what? I didn't play well at all tonight, and we still won by double digits. Who's to say I come out next game and I'm still able to get these guys involved? I can just knock down shots now. Golden State, as well as they shot tonight and as good of an offensive team as they are, they're not going to shoot like that every night. Boston's not going to shoot like they did tonight every single night in the finals. But when you have guys like Marcus Smart that are knocking down shots consistently, he knocked down a lot of big shots in the Miami series. Derek White has been playing crazy. And like I said, he played out of his mind tonight. That's not just tonight. He's been playing out of his mind for about the past month. So, and then you know what you're getting out of Jaylen Brown. Peyton Pritchard always gives you a nice little offensive boost. Al Horford's going to score. Robert Williams is going to be on the offensive glass. Like Grant Williams didn't play well tonight, or he didn't put up a lot of points, but even he has the capability to give you a quick 8 to 10. Jayson Tatum, if I score 22 to 25, I don't even have to score 30. That would make such a world of a difference of what we would see in terms of on the scoreboard. Because now you're playing defense. Now you're getting your number 1 and 2 guys to give you buckets. You're getting guys off of the bench giving you production. And then he's also able to still impact the game defensively and as well as making his teammates around him better. And I think that's going to make a world of a difference going forward for the rest of these NBA finals. So that's kind of all I wanted to get into today. Like I said, game 1 was great. I'm excited to see another 5 to 6 games of this. I think this has one of the makings of being one of the best finals we've seen in a while. I think I said the same thing last year, but I seriously believe that the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics match up with each other well. The guard play is great. The forwards are great. You got guys that are really hungry. Golden State obviously wants to get those 4th rings for those guys over there. Boston obviously wants to get these guys their first rings and prove that the system that they have going on and the culture that they built over there works. So I think that this is just a great, great matchup of guys clashing with each other, guys going at each other head to head. And Al Horford even said in the post-game conference that, man, this was just fun. So, like I said, we'll get another 5 to 6 games of this. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited as well. But that's all I have for you guys today. Like I said, if you want to connect with me on social media and talk about anything basketball or sports in general, please feel free to hit me up. Like I said, this content is going to be coming out really, really fast. At least I feel like I need to post at least something on each platform every day. So look out for that. Please follow me at pretty much TKVSPodcast or Kalen Vasher Show on everything. And until next time, and game 2, I'll see you guys later. Peace.